Hello, I'm Rianne. We have chosen this topic of language and gender. Our question was, does universities change the way you perceive stereotypical use of language based on your gender? In our hypothesis, we expected to find stereotypes in language still exist today, even in amongst university students in 2019.
Our methodology. So, in order to collect various answers, we approach students by means of qualitative research. Qualitative research is a method to collect samples in which we use questionnaires, surveys, and polls. We followed specific ethical guidelines. Firstly, we made sure that our questions were not biased to a specific gender or norm or ethnicity. If the questions were biased, we will be breaching an ethical guideline called protection of participants, as our participants would feel angry or intimidated. Secondly, for each student that we talk to, we debrief them about our research, and also we ask them for consent before beginning our questions. Thirdly, we made use of opportunity sampling. Opportunity sampling is when you stop individual people for your research in any given time, and this is what we did. We asked students who were walking around campus, and we stopped them to ask if they could partake in our research. Thirdly, to make our research fair, we made it generalizable, or in other words, universal. So we asked students from all genders, race, ethnicity, and socio-economic background. One strength of using quantitative research to carry out our research is that it allowed us to see in data and numerical form how many students felt about gender inequality when using language in comparison to other students who thought that gender had no relation to language. However, a weakness is that by using quantitative data, it didn't give us a precise details to our question, just in vague details. However, if we had used qualitative data, it would have given us more information and more precise information.
As Zainab explained, the methodology we used is face-to-face interaction, recording students. We did not discriminate based on their gender. We approached everyone, female to male. For our first question, do you think the word like is used more by females or males in university? From the book Sankin's Speech Improvement, it states that at once, it seemed to have a special priority usage by teenagers. However, use of like now extends to all ages and genders. So basically early 90s, amongst especially teenage girls in movies, the word like, especially American movies, the word like was heavily used. But now the word transcends into this decade, and many teenagers use it depending on their nationality. Like they could be British, and it extends to all and genders, ages as well. Like there's 30-year-old people saying like from the previous generation. There's young 5-year-olds using the word like, as it's heavily used in the media. The research we found debunks the quote because only 22% said equal, but more people said it was more feminine, is more used by females, 38%, and males was a tie between equal. So males were 22%, and 16% of people weren't sure. This type of data is interesting as it shows that stereotypes are heavily still in the subconscious of many teenagers or university students or just humans in general, because we're so influenced by the media and society and by gender stereotypes. In the second question, what type of language do you use to console your friends? The research that Floyd stated was that in verbal affection experiment, for instance, found that male to male were significantly less affectionate than female to female interaction or male to female interaction, the later two of which did not differ from each other. To conclude the statement that when females interact with other females, the verbal language is very affectionate, and when females interact with males, it's the same, like very affectionate. When it's male to male, this lacks affections, and emotive words are hardly used. The research that we found supports this statement. Has negative and no emotive language by males was voted 37% by the population that we've questioned.
The third question we asked in the survey was, do you think that by associating yourself with the opposite gender, the way you communicate changes? For example, you start using more feminine or masculine words. Prior to asking this question, in our survey, we had the notion that language was more susceptible to changing when communication is carried out with someone of the opposite gender. This was through our research where our perception enhanced, as in Trudgell's 1974 Norwich study, it was quoted that women tend to be more susceptible to overt prestige. Jury stated in 2004 that, considering communication skills, trainers may emphasize that effective communication is not based on biological sex, rather it is based on gender role, self-disclosure, and self-esteem of a person. Our responses backed this statement up, as many males stated that if they were talking to females, their language changed in terms of becoming more formal, and females contrasted this, that when speaking to males they used less formal vocabulary, such as bro and mate. This is due to the prospect of them trying to fit in with the gender they are in contact with. The results ended in more males changing their language when speaking to females than females changing their language for males, with 43% of males changing their language, whereas 18.8% of females changing their vocabulary. Having males change their language didn't come as a surprise, as we recognised that males will want to match the females' level of prestige so that they don't feel stereotypically inferior. However, the percentage of 37.5% who stated that they did not change their language was surprising. We expected the percentage to be less for this. Nevertheless, it shows that many people are confident in the way they speak.
Our fourth question, by attending lectures and completing academic work, do you think your language changed? For example, has your vocabulary broadened and become more formal? Our results were that the majority of people said no, that their vocabulary didn't broaden or change or become more formal. And a minority said yes, that it did change. We found that if they found their own language had changed, is because if they focused on lectures and learned and applied what they were learning and did more academic work in independent study time, then they are more likely to be influenced by the language being used in that university environment. The lecturers will use jargon of the subject and more academic words, which they will also find as they write academic papers, essays and things. And the more that they do this, ultimately, the more that will become more of their own language use.
When first deciding what topic we will choose, we had to consider the logical and ethical options as well as something we take interest in going more into depth about. Narrowing our demographics to university students was a viable option, as we are students ourselves and we could gather a large amount of research since we are surrounded by many students. This was also easier as students at university are over the age of 18, therefore considered as a legal adult, meaning we wouldn't have to go through the task of getting consent from the legal guardian, which could also take a lot more time.
We went with this topic as we came to the agreement as a group that gender is a general subject we all take interest in. Also, there are a variety of responses we could have received, making it more intriguing to know what the public's opinions were. However, as well as that, we also already had some speculation of what answers we may receive for a couple of the questions, such as women were more likely to say the word like. Therefore, we wanted to see if our speculations were correct.